In the final cleanup phase, we're going to redo the dedicated I/O bank symbol and talk a little bit about reusing that once we do. We can see that things aren't organized quite as nicely as we want them to be. I want all the JTAG down here. I want to organize stuff a little bit better. The analog voltages and the VPVN. So again, the way we always do that, or we're going to do that, is we're going to go look at the STL file. We're going to edit this into new STL editor. And we're going to use this include file, which is where the dedicated files are. So the nice thing about this is if we use an include file and we clean up this dedicated I/O banks, well, we can reuse that for any other Xilinx part in the Virtex Ultrascale Plus family that has the same pins. So that's one of the real powers of the include file here, and I have another video online about how to do that. But here we're just going to go clean it up. So we're going to edit the selected include file. Again, we're going to want to do a file save as, so we can and right now I'm working in a different directory, so we're going to call this dedicated and let's call it VU xcvu dedicated I/O banks. So that would be for the Xilinx Virtex Ultrascale. And we'll dedicated I/O pins, we'll call it, and we'll hit save. Okay, so now that renamed that. So here we'll stretch the window a little bit. Again, like I said, we want the TCK, we want T-clock, TMS, and TDO, which is sitting over here. We want those to be together. So let's take those, and I always like my JTAG on the bottom. It's just the way I've done it. And so what we want to do is, to make that happen, is we want to do a balanced symbol size right before it. And we can do that with this button here. And that'll separate, and this becomes a new group within this section. Now the VCCO, the VCC ADC, the reserve ground, and I want VP, I want VREFP. Those are all the analog signals, and I want to put them up at the top. So we can click them, and then we can use the up button and just move them up to here, and then again we'll put a balanced symbol size to separate that. So now we have a balanced symbol size above and below. Let's move the VCC and ADC. Let's let go of that one. VCC and ground ADC up. On the right we'll have VCC, on the left we'll have ground, then we'll have the VP input, and then the VREFP input, which are diff pairs. And then let's move this back where it came from, the mode bits, and then we'll have the reserve ground on the right, and then we'll have a new section in the symbol again. The D pins, D0, D1, they should be together. And now we have the mode pins, the D0, DN, and the D0. So we got 03, 02, 01. So we want to put 1 above 0. So we're gonna click that. And these didn't get bussed because they have special extra names. So PartBuilder was able to bus the pins here, but because this had a D and an MOSI attached to it, it was not able to keep them in that same bus there. So the mode pins are good on the left. We have a spacer between the D0, D3, D0 to 1. And now we got a spacer. We have C clock on the left. We have a init B on the left. So let's do this. Let's put init. I like init B, program, and done. I like them together. So I'm going to move them, and I'm actually going to move them to the top of all this. Okay. And I'm going to put a balance symbol size between there. So now I have a section with init B, program, and done. Then I have the mode bits, I have the space. I probably don't need this spacer anymore. We'll play with the spacers on our own. The VCCO, this is the voltage for all of these pins here. And this DXP, that's another analog signal, and that goes on the right. So let's cut this with a Control X, bring that up into the analog section. So we're going to have the diode there. Let's move VBAT and VCCO. Let's move them up to here. And then, actually, why don't we put the reserve ground next to the VBAT. So VBAT 0 will be on the right. Let's put that on the left. Let's put this one on the right, and let's put this one on the left. So we'll have our grounds together. Actually, let's put this on the right. So we'll have VBAT on the right, reserve ground on the right, and VCCO 0 on the left. Let's put another balance symbol size. We can be very generous with those. And then now we're looking here. We got POR override, PUDC, and read-write FS. This one goes along with the data and the C clock. So let's put that there. Let's put a spacer on the left between the data and the read-write. So to do that, we do a left spacer. And we probably want a spacer between mode bits and the deep bits. So let's put a spacer there. So that just adds a grid of space between those two for us. And we can improve the spacing all we want. The POR override and the PUDC, those actually go with this. These should probably be together. So on the left we have the power override, we have the pull up during configuration, we have the mode bits, and we have a spacer. Okay, and we'll get rid of that spacer. So let's take a peek. We have our JTAG section. On the right we'll have TDO, TCK, TDI, TMS. Some people, maybe do we want TDI first, TMS second? Let's do that. In this section here we have the init B, the program B, and the done. And I like init B on the left too because it's an in on the right because it's an in out. And then so init B and done, and I like done on the top of the section just because it's an output that tells. In most of my work I've lit an LED with this and also sent it to some CPLD to tell them that this FPGA is done. We got the VBAT, we got reserve ground on the right, we got VCCO on the left. So we can save this, and then let's open this one more time and choose the new include file. So we're going to replace the selection with include file, and we're going to find the xcvu dedicated pins. Okay, and like all the other ones, let's go over and let's get rid of the prefix because we don't need that. Okay, so now we're going to use the xcvu dedicated I/O pins. We use the generic I/O banks that we worked on, the transceiver banks, the FPGA power pins, the ground pins. As another cleanup, I just always like my ground on the bottom. So I'm going to put ground because this one has the most potential to change, especially when we're moving from one FPGA to another. So it'll change, and the number of symbols will change, and that it lets us reuse a lot of stuff better if we put the ground pins at the end. So now we're going to save this file, the top, and then we'll run again. And we'll basically start from scratch. We notice it skipped the SmartFrac step because this file here is a different name than the templates, so it knows, hey, you don't need to run SmartFrac anymore. Now we're going to view the symbol and take a peek at what we came up with. So we have ground, ADC, VADC, VPVN. I thought we had a balanced symbol sides in between there. We probably want one or a spacer on both sides to push those down. Then we have the VCCO, the VBAT, and the reserve ground. Let's take a quick peek at our. So we're going to go to include files, edit, selected, include. Okay. So we have VCC. So we have the VCC ADC0 on the right, which I want that on the left. I really want the ground on the right. And then I want to put a balanced symbol sides in here to just push those down. So we're going to go to here, add balanced symbol sides, and that'll add a grid between the VPVN, another section. So then we have the VPVN. So this is a diff pair, so it automatically placed the N underneath it. The VREF-P was a diff pair, so it automatically placed the N underneath it. And then the DXP and 0, that was a diff pair, and it was placed on the right. Then we have the balanced symbol sides, which pushes down. We get the VBAT 0 over here, the reserve ground over here, and then the VCCO 1 and 2 on the left. Then we have a balanced symbol sides, which pushes down and gives us the data, D3, 2, 1, 0. We have the read-write, the C clock, the P override, the PUDC. I think I'd probably want a spacer at that power override. So if you take your time with this and do the symbol that you really like, again, we can reuse this by just reusing this include file on any FPGA symbol that's in the Virtex family. So let's add a spacer on the left in between power override, or actually I wanted it in between C clock. I had it right where I wanted. So we'll put a spacer in between there and push those down. And then we might as well put a spacer between the M2. I like to separate my buses as well. So I can add a spacer on the left. And here you can see we have the balanced symbol sides, so that pushes those down. And then we have the TDO, TDI, TMS, and TCK. So we'll save this, close it, and we're just going to, so because we changed the SDL, we have to run the SDL map step and the symbol builder step. The SDL map step looks through all the pins and reads the SDL and figures out how to assign them and how to draw those symbols using all the spacers that we came up with and all the symbol splits that we came up with. So we finished the build, so now we can view them. And now we could take one more look. We're going to look at the dedicated pins and take a quick peek around. So again, we have VCC ADC on the left, ground ADC on the right. We did a balanced symbol sides to push those pins down. We got the VP, the VREF, and the DXP. We did a balanced symbol sides. We got our VCCO on the left. We have VBAT and reserve ground on the right. Then we push down. We have the program pins, the done, and the init. And then we have a balanced symbol sides to push the D3. We got the read, write, and C clock separated. We separated that from the power overrides because these are more configuration pins. And then we have the TDO, TDI, TMS.